This is a presentation on open source software by Natalee Edwards. Open source is essentially free universal software. There's a free license on the design, and that design continues to be improved by others. They have opened the sources of software code, and by that, enabled self-enhancing diversity of the product models, communication paths, and interactive communities. Open source is a computer program for public use. So how do you use it? This program is made unique by its public source code. It grows and continuously improves by the ability to let users modify the program from its original design to improve it or customize it for the user's personal needs. Programmers improve upon the source code and share the changes within the community. Open source code is a collaborative effort. People can use software for many purposes. Change the software and share the software. The way open source is updated is very distinctive as well. Open source is known as the largest collaborative in computing systems with 15 million lines of code. Rate of updates is unmatched. It is known that every 3 months a new kernel is up. There are many communities around open source. The largest is the user community, then the developer community. They all ran on free software. One of the basic principles of open source software is peer production. Peer production is a way of producing the software that relies on self-organizing communities of individuals that are all aiming for the same outcome. With all the benefits of open source, many companies use open source. One is IBM. They employ teams of engineers working for open source, while IBM directly does not get any profit from their work. Other companies working with open source range far and wide. Open source provides power servers for Amazon, eBay, Google, Twitter, and Facebook. They run the New York Stock Exchange, and others in open source are HP, Dell, Intel, and Samsung. Open source has grown tremendously due to the innovative structure of open source. First, the open source community had to become involved. Next, open source programmers continued to produce, service, and support the programs. Then, the enterprise was adopted to mainstream concepts and technology. All of this then results in innovation of the brand. This was a graph created in 2012, representing the number of unique open source projects. While they grew steadily between 2006 and 2008, and then between 2008 and 2010, you can see they nearly tripled from 2010 to 2012. And it is predicted to double in 2012 to 2014. Open source aims to make proprietary software, their competitor, obsolete. We have been in a proprietary world for 4 decades, and the open source movement in software began as a response to the limitations of proprietary software. Proprietary software is software that is owned by an individual or company. The entity who develops it or owns it usually keeps its source code secret, and the use of this software is majorly restricted and very expensive. There are some unclear trade-offs. First, open source has zero cost, while proprietary has a large upfront cost and lower ongoing cost. And the features of open source are good enough, while proprietary is much more complete. The security for open source is much lower than the high security for proprietary source. There's also no vendor lock-in for support, whereas with proprietary, there's a commitment on support. And the development for open source is community-driven, whereas proprietary is managed. Open source software is software that can be freely used, changed, and shared by anyone. Open source software is made by many people and distributed to all. Open source is the new way, and lastly, it is free.